Welcome back everyone to George James and Associates Research Tools channel. Today in this video, I'm going to walk you through um, the last chapter of a dissertation. And specifically, we're going to look to doing, I don't want to say it's our second and final literature review for the dissertation, but that's kind of where we are. So you can see I've already written the first 4 chapters. I just submitted chapter 4. And this is my second dissertation, by the way. So I already have my first doctorate. This is the second one. And I haven't, and you can see here because all the other chapters are fleshed out pretty well. But chapter 5, this is just the template. And so I'm going to scroll down, go through all this stuff. It's a lot. Dissertations are, yeah, exactly. This is where I wanted to go. All right. That's the summary statistics. I need to go to the next one for the regression. Okay, so the regression results. So actually, let me go up to the model just so that you know what's going on in this research. So my model, I have 2 of them actually. So fraud work and fraud manage. Fraud work, this is the model where I wanted to see if participants from certain industries and service categories defined by the LinkedIn. If you go to LinkedIn and you can filter by industry and service category. So I just decided to use those and see how participants identified, and then see in the simulation if participants from specific industries or service categories were more or less likely to commit fraud, that is, cheat on the simulation. They were able to shortcut and just make up values and move through it quicker. The prompt said that the people who were done, they needed to be accurate, but if they just hurried through it, then they would get bonus compensation. And so I wanted to see who would do that. That was after I showed them. I basically said, imagine that you're a worker for you're a bookkeeper, an accountant for a company, and so what you're doing is you're summing accounts receivable totals, and that's all you're doing. And so as the worker. And so I gave them a blurb about the company values, which includes honesty, right, not cheating, etc. And so that's what they did under fraud work. And then for fraud manage, I had pre-added totals, and the idea was is that they were checking the work of a worker, so they were checking the work of someone else. And so they just needed to double check the work, sign off, and say whether it was okay or not. So I wanted to see if the managers would perpetrate, not perpetrate, sorry, would perpetrate fraud. So here it was, would they originate fraud? Would they commit fraud? And in this model, would the managers allow fraud to continue through the organization by not flagging it, essentially? And so I wanted to know if both the workers and the managers from specific industries and service categories were more or less likely to engage in fraud or to perpetrate it. And so the first vector was the industry service category as the variables of interest. Second vector, we have the control variables of age, gender, race, ethnicity, marital status, education, and I took the log of income because I want to know what their income was based on would higher or lower wage earners essentially be more or less likely to commit or perpetrate fraud. Perpetuate. That's the word I was looking for. Perpetuate fraud. Okay, so those are the models, and so let's move then to the results. Table 3, logit. Okay, logit results, logit regression results. So this first column, or the second column, first column is the variable. Second column is the fraud work model. Third column is the fraud managed model. And so you can see just from casual, if you're used to reading these types of tables, you can see that not that many variables are significant. So I had nothing that was significant at the 1% level, right? That would be the 3 stars. But I did have a couple of variables that were significant at the 10% level, denoted by 1 star, and denoted by 2 stars, significance at the 5% level, right? That means respectively that the results had a less than 10% probability of occurring by chance and 5% probability of occurring by chance, respectively. Okay, so starting here, I'll just go down. So in the fraud work, these are the people that actually committed fraud. Those in financial services were 3. Remember, these are odds ratios, and so this person was these people were 3 times less likely, surprisingly enough. Based on my other research, I would expect this to be a lot more to be positive. So the financial services industry people were 3 times less likely to originate fraud in the organization. Very surprised by that one. Not surprising though is within the service category. So industry was this, right? This group, service category, this group. Bookkeepers were over 3.5 times more likely, right? And the first one only significant at the 10% level. However, the bookkeeper is significant at the 5% level, right? This is what really matters. This is the gold standard, if you will. So bookkeepers much more likely to engage in fraud. And then the only other significant variable in the fraud work model was education. So those with more education, slightly 10% more likely to engage in fraud versus those with less education. So going to fraud manage. This time I had 2 variables that were significant at the 5% level, one that was significant at the 10% level. So starting with the less significance, at the 10% level, those who identified as being other married, and the other married is a variable that I created because there weren't enough observations in separated by itself, in the separated category, in the widowed category, and in the prefer not to say category. Or in the cohabited partnered category. So all 4 of those had very few results, like 1, 2, 3. And so I combined all those together, so that way our model wouldn't be misspecified. It wouldn't, and because when that happens, the standard errors go, they become in the thousands, and you can't really rely on those results. And so what I did here is I combined everything else except for married, which is the reference category, divorced, and single. Everything else went into other married. So other married were I guess less than or more than 2 times less. Let's just say twice less likely to perpetuate fraud. So they were 2 times less likely, over 2 times less likely. There we go. That's a better way to say it. Over 2 times less likely to perpetuate fraud. And then, and again, that was only significant at the 10% level. Significant at the 5% level, however, were divorced people were almost 2 1/3 times less likely to perpetuate fraud. And then, interestingly enough, those who identified as Hispanic were nearly 2 times more likely to perpetuate fraud. I think this is maybe the most surprising find. Wouldn't expect this, honestly. I don't know. And that's what you should sort of be coming away with, I think. Unless your model is one-tailed, mine was two-tailed. So I just wanted to see if people from specific industries and service categories were more or less likely. That's a two-tailed test, and so you're looking at both ends of the curve, of the bell curve, essentially, right, of the normal distribution curve. And so it is, you're really unsure at that point whether or not um, any of these are going to be significant, and you don't know the direction. If it's one-tailed, then that would be different. So unless every control variable, every variable of interest is one-tailed test, then you should be coming away from your results saying, that's interesting. I don't know why that is. Okay, and that leads us to the last bit of literature that we have to research on the topic. And so this is going to be a 2-part video. The first part, I just wanted to catch you up on what's going on in this paper, in this dissertation. And then in the second part, we are going to jump into Google Scholar and also my institution's library database to search for articles regarding our findings.